You're looking from a helicopter, moving slowly past a crowded grandstand before a major stock car race. That's the starting field, poised for a start on a clear, warm, southern autumn afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim McKay, speaking to you this time from the Super Speedway at Charlotte, North Carolina, which today will be the scene of the National 500, one of the last Super Speedway races of the NASCAR Grand National Circuit for 1970. At this moment, I'm standing on the second row next to car number 3, to be driven today by Fred Lorenzen. Just a couple of years ago, Freddie was the biggest name on the NASCAR circuit. Then he retired, but he could not withstand the lure of the racetrack. He's back again with an independently entered car, and as you can see, it qualified pretty well right in the second row. However, on the first row, on the outside, is the most familiar number and name in this sport. Particularly in the Carolinas area, number 43 always means Richard Petty, just as much as number 12 means Joe Namath in New York City. As we said, he's not quite the fastest today, but is on the outside of the first row. You may not be quite as familiar with the number or the name of the man who won the pole position here, number 99, Charlie Glotzbach from Indiana. He qualified with an average speed of more than 157 miles an hour. 40 cars altogether in the field. It's a big race, and it should be a very fast and exciting one. Also on today's program, you're going to be seeing the national air races from Reno, Nevada. The commentator out there, by the way, will be ABC's space expert, Jules Bergman. We'd like to welcome Jules for the first time to ABC's Wide World of Sports. At this moment, however, let's check in with our constant colleague on these racing telecasts. The editor of National Speed Sport News behind the pit wall right now is Chris Economaki.
Thank you, Jim. The mechanics for the cars of the National 500 have a tough problem facing them. They're living with a new carburetor plate that was ordered put on the cars at mid-season this year. The idea of the carburetor plate was to reduce speed through the reduction of engine horsepower. A very inexpensive way was devised to do this. A plate with smaller holes in it has been installed in all the cars. The original size carburetor holes were 1 and 11/16 inches in diameter. Now a plate goes in that reduces it to 1 1/4 inches in diameter. It's like closing one nostril when you're in a running race. What this has done has brought the speeds of the cars down from 3 to 4 miles an hour, has made the engines last longer, and in general tightened up the competition. It has made for better racing, but the mechanics don't like it.
Thanks very much, Chris. A very significant factor, and later we'll find out exactly why the mechanics don't like it. Here's the man we said sits on the pole as the drivers are ready to get into their cars. That was Charlie Glotzbach. Here's the fellow leading currently for this year's Grand National Championship, Bobby Isaac, but he's locked in a battle with James Hilton. Here's Buddy Baker, all 6 feet 5 inches of him, recent winner of the Southern 500 at Darlington, the daddy of them all. Cale Yarborough, one of the great names for the last several years, not having a top season so far in 1970. This is Bobby Allison of the Racing Allison Brothers from Hueytown, Alabama, an intelligent driver, a factor in every race he enters. And here is Leroy Yarborough, no relation to Cale, winless so far in 1970, almost unbelievably. This is David Pearson, 3-time NASCAR National Point Grand National Champion. Here is the field. You see the first row, Richard Petty, number 43, Glotzbach, number 99. Cry of gentlemen, start your engines has gone out. As a matter of fact, a couple of engines, sadly, they started on the word gentlemen. But now the field will move out onto the racetrack. These NASCAR stock racing cars looking much more like race cars these days than like something you'd see on the street. Of course, the cars you see on the street nowadays, Chris, look pretty much like race cars, too.
And we see a wing or two now and then.
As they move out, they'll be taking a pace lap or two, then they'll get the green flag, and away they'll go under clear, warm skies at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll be back in a minute for the start. At Charlotte, North Carolina, we're almost ready for a start in the National 500. Jim McKay reporting with Chris Economaki. This oval, 1.5 miles in circumference. The starting field, remember, on the first row, that's Richard Petty, number 43, and number 99, Glotzbach. Second row, number 6 is Baker, number 3 is Lorenzen. Row 3, number 98 is Yarborough. There's the pace car off the track. We're going to get a green flag. Third row, 98, Yarborough, 40, Pete Hamilton. We give you the rest of the cars after the start because this is going to be it. They're headed down the straightaway, ready to take that green flag, and the race will be underway. The purple car on the inside is Charlie Glotzbach on the pole. Here they go. Into the first turn, it's Glotzbach. Richard Petty right alongside of him. And Buddy Baker trying to maneuver, trying to get lower in between the two of them. Baker loves to take the lead as quick as he possibly can. In the red car, down low, he's in third place, and Leroy Yarborough in the white car, number 98, has moved into fourth. He's ahead of David Pearson, but now it's Richard Petty going for the lead. Buddy Baker also right behind Charlie Glotzback, the three cars moving back and forth, each trying to take the lead as they go through the banking between turns 3 and 4 for the first time. Side by side, and it's still Glotzback in first. Baker now trying to get ahead of Petty. Terrific maneuvering here in the early going. One lap completed, and Glotzback is still the leader. Into the first turn again.
The winged cars, Jim, seem to have it over those without.
Well, that's another item that we haven't discussed is the Chrysler-Ford situation, Chris.
Well, the Chrysler cars out-qualified the Fords by a substantial margin, leading to rumors that the Fords just couldn't cut it today, but we'll wait and see.
Let's find out. It's still Charlie Glotzback in the lead. Back here is Leroy Yarborough. We saw him for a moment ahead of David Pearson. They're battling for 4th and 5th, but very close to the leaders. And now, Buddy Baker up high is going to try to take the lead from Glotzback, and this time he's got it. Buddy Baker in first place. That's where he always likes to be. He's the big fellow, remember. 6 feet 5 inches tall, recent winner of the Southern 500. And the battle for second now between Glotzback, low in the purple car, and Richard Petty in the Petty blue, number 43. Nothing to choose between those two, but now it's Petty moving out in front. And Leroy Yarborough just behind them in 4th place. And here's the leader, Buddy Baker, son of a race driver, and what a driver himself.
He's really moving along. His speed's better than 155 miles an hour, Jim.
Charlie Glotzback dropping back a little bit now. In 3rd position and could very quickly be caught by Leroy Yarborough. 6 and 43 up on top, Buddy Baker and Richard Petty. It was a long drought for Buddy before winning down there at Darlington, wasn't it?
He has had a dry season, and was he ever happy after that one? That kind of confidence buoys you up, and look at him go today.
As you can see, there's Leroy Yarborough and David. Look out! David Pearson out of control, hitting the wall. That was Cale Yarborough that just ticked him, I think, and now Pearson coming down low, avoiding all other cars, and it looks like everybody's going to be okay.
There's not even a yellow flag, Jim, but what a tough break for Ford. 2 of their star drivers involved in this early race accident. Let's see if they can get back on the track.
David getting it into the pits, and it looked like something there between him and Leroy Yarborough. They were battling for 4th place at the time.
Oh, here's Cale's car, Jim, and it looks like it's had it.
Cale Yarborough, kind of an innocent bystander, just ticked Pearson's car as it came down after hitting the guardrail up top. But there you see what's left to the right front of Cale Yarborough's car. Oh, he's really upset, and you can't blame him. It's been that kind of a year for Cale.
It's amazing. 2 years ago, he was the biggest money winner on the circuit, and this year he's really having trouble getting to victory lane. And
there, that 485 is a signal to Richard Petty as regards his speed, 154.949 miles an hour.
That was 34.85 seconds in pitboard parlance, Jim, and that's moving.
Okay, and now Richard is trying to take the lead from Buddy Baker, and he's got it. Richard Petty, for the first time today, takes the lead, and the crowd really likes it. This is North Carolina. It's Petty country.
And Petty has made a remarkable recovery from that accident we saw on Wide World in May at Darlington. He hasn't lost a second on the watch.
And now with Glotzback still dropping back, Leroy Yarborough also dropped back. It's Pete Hamilton, Richard Petty's teammate, who's moved into 3rd in the other blue car with the red nose there. That's car number 40, Pete Hamilton, the pride of New England, down here in the Southland.
And here's the word, Jim. Both Pearson and Cale Yarborough are out of it.
Okay, here's another battle for 11th place at the moment, but it's important. 71 there is Bobby Isaac battling with James Hilton. Those are the 2 cars battling for the year-long championship. Back in a minute. This is Jim McKay back at Charlotte. Chrissy Konamaki is down in the pit area with David Pearson, who just had that accident.
David, it's not like you to run into people. What happened out there?
Well, Chris, I didn't. When I started by Leroy, we were side by side going down the backstretch, and when we got number 3 turn, he just cut me off and wouldn't know where I could go, and he run me down on the apron. And then I lost it when I got down on the apron, and I got up and spun. I was about to spin, and the Cale hit me.
Why do you think that happened to begin with? Why, Leroy doesn't usually run people off, does he?
No, he don't usually run nobody off, but I guess he just didn't want me to go by him. And I know the time before that I tried to pass him on the outside going into 1, and he run me way up high into next to the guardrail there. So I guess he just don't want nobody to go around him.
Unfortunately, we can't give Leroy equal time. He's out there still racing, but here's a replay of what happened. Pearson down low, Yarborough next to him.
Well, Jim, it looks as though Pearson's car is rather loose going up the track there. And really, I can't see where Leroy was out of line.
And there's Cale Yarborough just hitting David Pearson. Cale, as we said, an innocent spectator. No way he could have stopped himself. And now back to the live action in the race. Richard Petty is the leader in car number 43. Bobby Isaac being lapped. Remember, he's in the battle for the year-long NASCAR Grand National Championship, fighting it out with James Hilton. But as for this race, it's Richard Petty in number 43, Buddy Baker in car number 6 in second place. Charlie Glotzback with smoke coming from and fire shooting out from under the engine. Now, did he hit the wall up there, Chris?
Yes, he did, Jim. It looks like a right front tire let go, and he sideswiped the wall. A good wallop, and that apparently knocked something in the engine loose and allowed the oil to blaze momentarily, but he's out of it.
Well, Charlie Glotzback was running 4th at the time, but now he is out of it. Quick reminder here that NFL football is back on Monday night on ABC. It'll be Baltimore and Green Bay at Milwaukee, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Don't miss that. We'll try not to miss anything here either, as Charlie Glotzback is out of the car. He's fine. No injuries involved in it, but Charlie out of the race. The leader is number 43, Richard Petty. Right with him is Buddy Baker, number 6. In third place is number 40, Pete Hamilton, Richard Petty's teammate. And in fourth position now is Leroy Yarborough. Then Bobby Allison in car number 22 and Fred Lorenzen in number 3.
And the speed, Jim, 154.9 miles an hour. No yellow flags yet, despite the accidents.
Tremendous racing on this 1.5-mile racetrack. The lead car is going through traffic, and that's no easy job. But you'll notice that the slower cars play not what you call a polite game, but an intelligent racing man's game. They get down low. So that's about the story from here for the moment. We're going on now to the National Air Races and Jules Bergman. We're still under a yellow flag at Charlotte, and there's the car of Dr. Don Tarr, the racing medical doctor from Florida, being towed off the track. There's number 31, the remains of Jim Vandiver's car. And down in the pits, Chrissy Kanamaki's with James Hilton.
James, your car looks really torn up, but are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just shook up a little bit, but the car is totaled out. It's a refugee from the junkyard now.
Jim, this is a serious blow on your drive for the championship, isn't it?
Well, it cost me the championship. I had to finish here today, so I can kiss the championship goodbye.
You can't make it in the races that remain?
No, there's no way now. Well, he'll come out of here with over 100-point lead, so it's just virtually impossible now.
It's $100,000 about out the window.
Yeah, I've had it happen before, so I'm kind of getting used to it.
Jim, what about the accident itself? How did it shape up, and how were you involved?
Well, the doctor driving the 37 triggered it. He just ran into the wall. He was out there running by himself, and I don't know why he got in the wall. And as he came down, he caught my right rear quarter panel on the way down.
James Hilton out of it, and out of the battle for the championship as well.
Chris, if you take a look at your monitor, here's a replay. There's Don Tarr up against the wall.
And there's that solid hit into the side of Hilton's car. You know, Jim, this accident perhaps was more expensive from an equipment standpoint than any single crash on the NASCAR circuit during the 1970 season. Never before this year have 3 cars been so utterly destroyed as these 3.
See, the front sheared right off of Hilton's car. He was a fortunate man today.
Great testament for seat belts and shoulder harnesses.
Completely inexplicable crash on the part of James Hilton, but now we're going to get a restart on the track. We saw the crowd craning their necks as the pace car went off. Number 27 is actually a lap behind as he leads the field past the green flag. The leader in the race, however, is not that car. The leader in the race is car number 40, Pete Hamilton, followed by 22, Bobby Allison. There you see them, right behind number 27, Donnie Allison, but he's a lap behind. Pete Hamilton, number 40, 22, Bobby Allison, 43 is Richard Petty, and number 6 is Buddy Baker. Those are the true leaders. And now they're lapping, putting another lap on Bobby Isaac, the fellow who is leading for the NASCAR point standing championship, the Grand National Championship, and it looks like he'll win it now that James Hilton's out of the race.
Appears so. He's just cruising now and wants to finish. Incidentally, the speed of the race has dropped to 118.86 miles an hour, Jim, despite the fact that the pace is over 150 miles an hour.
Okay, and there's Richard Petty up high in number 43, moving past Bobby Allison. So now the Petty cars are running first and second. Pete Hamilton in the lead and Richard Petty himself in second place. And now Buddy Baker setting up to try to take Bobby Allison. There he is, moving past Allison, and number 22 is number 6, Buddy Baker. So it's Hamilton, Petty, and Baker.
running 1, 2, 3, all of them trying to lap Donnie Allison, and there's Hamilton going past Donnie, the other half of the Racing Allison brothers from Hueytown, Alabama. Donnie, who's had very good racing luck on this track in the past. He won this race just a year ago, for example.
Won the spring race here too, Jim. Made a lot of money on the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
So far today, as you see, he's being lapped by the leaders, but both Allisons have a way of driving extremely steady races and somehow at the end being there. So we'll keep an eye on both of them. And now Richard Petty may have decided to take the lead from his teammate Pete Hamilton, but they're certainly not going to bother each other too much, and Richard falls in line behind him once again.
You wonder what's running through Pete Hamilton's mind right now, whether he feels as though he should stay there, race his teammate, or not.
You think they might try to draft on each other at all, Chris?
There's not too much drafting here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. The carburetor plate has cut the speed down just enough to where drafting is not a significant factor here. And as I said before, the mechanics don't like it because a sharp mechanic can tune a little more horsepower out of an engine, and with the plate he can't do that. Buddy Baker has gotten by now for a position.
Yes, he has. He's moved into second place right behind Pete Hamilton. So now it's Hamilton, Baker, and Richard Petty. Buddy Baker forming a Petty team sandwich at the moment.
That's right. He's out to win it.
He's got a blue car on either side of him as they continue to lap. Buddy's up against the wall. Just suddenly, he flew up there on the last turn. He was trying to negotiate and hit the wall. Nobody's going to hit him. It's going to be okay, but that could be the end of the afternoon for Buddy.
It's a tough break for Buddy. Apparently something happened with the right front corner of the car that sent him up there, because he's not want to run into a wall without a good reason.
So the leaders are the two Petty cars. Remember that, as Buddy Baker limps into the pits, waving to his pit crew, trying to give them some kind of information and instructions. Not happy about it at all, obviously.
There's the right front tire being changed. They've had some problems with tires going flat on the right front. Remember, the safety inner liner is in all of these tires, which keeps the flat tire from becoming a serious accident. The car just loses about an inch in height and is able to get to the pits.
And as you can see, they're still trying to pry some of that metal work away from that right rear wheel.
Can you imagine having your local body man giving you an estimate on this job?
Back on the track, it's still Pete Hamilton in the lead, number 40. Richard Petty, number 43, is second, and Leroy Yarborough, now in car number 98, by the way, is in third place. Leroy driving a real intelligent race today. Hasn't won a race all year. And there he is. Running in third position in the race right now is Leroy Yarborough, behind the two Petty cars of Hamilton and Richard Petty. Buddy Baker out of the car, steaming, as you might imagine. A very unhappy and discouraged race driver. The racing goes on at Charlotte, and we'll see it right to the finish. At Charlotte, we've passed the halfway mark in the National 500. Pete Hamilton is still the leader, and right now, Christy Katamaki is down in the pits with Buddy Baker.
Well, Buddy, it hasn't been at all a good day for you, has it?
Well, I guess that goes along with sports. You can't have a good day every day, but that's kind of tough. We had a little bit of trouble earlier in the race. I lost a tire, and then I was running second and was right behind Pete and had trouble again. So this time I was going into the corner, and it was that either go towards the wall and glance off of it or take a chance on the inner tire blowing out and going head first into it. So I drove it up high in case the inner tire did blow, and then it broke traction, of course, and got in the wall. But I'd rather do that than maybe wipe out 10 or 12 cars.
And look at it on the racetrack. There's another car up against the wall. It's number 06, Neil Castles, a hometown driver from here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Soapy Castles, they call him, and we can't tell yet what kind of shape he's in. You see the ambulance immediately on the scene over there. Strange that number 6 was out of the race just a minute or two ago. Now 06 is out.
They're safety-oriented, Jim, but the question in my mind is, why did he crash? It's an odd thing.
And on that same turn where Dr. Don Tarr inexplicably crashed also a while ago. Into the pits comes Richard Petty. Remember, he's running second behind his teammate Pete Hamilton in car number 40.
Well, this NASCAR racing has got just a few more weeks before the season is over. On Sunday, the 8th of November, the Georgia 500 at Middle Georgia Raceway in Macon, Georgia comes up, followed by the American 500 at the North Carolina Motor Speedway in Rockingham. And the season closes down in Texas on the 7th of December with the Texas 400 at the Texas International Speedway in College Station.
Boy, there's a busy pit crew down in the Petty pits. No sooner did Richard go out than Pete came in, and there's what's left of Neil Castle's car. He's all right, by the way, out of the car and riding away. Boy, not much left of that one either.
That car needs a nose job, Jim.
It sure does. Okay, we'll be back here for the finish of the National 500 at Charlotte. Right now on to the National Air Races again, and Jules Bergman. Again, we're back at the Charlotte Motor Speedway at the National 500. Weather conditions still perfect, and the leader in the race continues to be car number 40, driven by Pete Hamilton, the fellow from the north, the Yankee Clipper, they're beginning to call him now. Right, Chris?
That's right, Jim. He's won $127,000 in prize money, more than anyone else on the NASCAR circuit.
And there's Leroy Yarborough in car number 98, who's in second place, and in third place, Bobby Allison, number 22, right there. But a lap down, we see Richard Petty in number 43 on the left of the screen, right alongside Bobby Isaac. Isaac, by the way, can get into this thing yet. Remember, he's the fellow leading for the season-long Grand National Championship now that James Hilton has been crashed and out of the race.
Petty, Jim, had tire problems and made an extra pit stop and therefore is a lap down.
But here is the leader, teammate of Richard Petty, Pete Hamilton in car number 4. Look out! It looked like he might have blown a right side tire up against the wall. There was nobody near him at the time. He was leading the race all by himself, but now it could be it's all over for Peter.
These winged cars, Jim, have had an epidemic of right front tire failures. It's really strange.
Excuse me, there's Leroy Yarborough, who is now the leader in the race. Remember that.
Well, Hamilton will be coming to the pits. Here he is now, and let's hope that they can fix it and get him back in action. But that was a solid hit in the right front corner of the car. Maybe damaged too much or too severely to continue.
Well, we'll find out as the pit crew in the Petty pits goes to work. This is a good look at that mesh.
That's right. That's the safety screen that those boys prefer to use. And Pete apparently is aware that it was a hard hit. There's the Mexican speed wrench, as it's colloquially called in the pits, a sledgehammer banging the fender out.
Okay, but a long pit stop already. Out on the racetrack, the leader is Leroy Yarborough. Remember, a fellow who hasn't won a race all year, although he's one of the outstanding drivers on the NASCAR circuit. And I guess that's about it. There is Pete taking off his harness.
There you can see the harness he used over the left shoulder, Jim, to keep the weight of the crash helmet from carrying his head to the right and combating the centrifugal force created in the corners.
However, as of now, all these items are useless as Pete Hamilton is out of the race. Just a minute ago, he was the leader, apparently on his way to a victory. Young man who's won more money than anybody else this year.
We checked on Neil Castle's, Jim, and we found out that the reason his 06 Dodge hit that inside wall was due to a blown engine.
Watch it. There goes Richard Petty up against the guardrail. The teammate of Pete Hamilton also crashing and coming immediately into the pits. He made a real quick pit stop out of it.
And this looks like for the very same reason that affected Hamilton. There they go on the right front corner of the car again.
Perhaps this could have been foreseen if you were clairvoyant when Richard came into the pits a little bit earlier with tire trouble.
Well, that's a tough break for the Petty boys.
It sure is. Leroy Yarborough still cruising around out there as the leader in the race, as the Petty team may both have had it for the afternoon.
Well, this car doesn't seem to be as damaged quite as much as the number 40 car was, Jim. He may be able to get back on the track.
But now here is Leroy coming in for a pit stop. Now, he had one not too long ago.
Well, this is a scheduled pit stop, I do believe, Jim. Their boys are getting the best mileage today, and that Junior Johnson crew really turns to on it.
Yes, they do. Junior, who himself was one of the top drivers on the circuit, now the car owner. There's a look at Leroy. These drivers are always so eager to get out of there, you know?
Always in a hurry, and that's the name of the game in stock car racing.
And back here in the Petty pits, they're still working furiously on Richard's car. They want to give it a try. We'll find out how that all turns out in another minute. And now Chris is going to have a word with Richard Petty down in the pits.
Well, it's been a tough day for the Petty Blue Plymouths, Richard. What was it that took you out of the race?
Well, same thing happened to both cars. Had tire trouble and hit the fence, and when we did, it knocked the front end out of line. I had one tire to go down early, and it messed around and got a lap behind, but I was still, you know, running fairly good, I guess, and then when I blew that last, and it hit the wall, and it's all over with.
Why do you think we're having so much tire trouble today?
Well, they've slowed the cars down as far as running down the straightaway, and to make them run faster, you got to run harder through the corners, and now everybody runs wide open through the corners, and actually it makes it harder on the tire now than it was when we run fast down the straightaway, so that's the difference right there.
Well, Richard, thank you. Better luck next time.
Thank you.
There's the story on Richard Petty. Back out on the track is Bobby Isaac. successfully unlapping himself on Leroy Yarborough, the leader. So he's on the same lap with the leader now. We have 3 cars on the same lap. Yarborough still the leader. In second place, Bobby Allison, number 22, and in third place now, Bobby Isaac. Those the three leaders, any one of them could win it. There's a fire on the track. That's number 18, Joe Frasson of Golden Valley, Minnesota, doing a good job of getting his car under control, but dragging an awful lot of possibly debris and oil around with him as he's still on the racing surface.
Boy, he's a fortunate fellow. That was a blown engine creating an oil fire that could have consumed the car, but he kept it going and blew it out, Jim.
There's Junior Johnson standing by in the Leroy Yarborough pits. He's the car owner, remember. The yellow flag is out. Look at Herd Nav with those nuts in his mouth.
Those are lug bolts, and apparently they're going to bring Leroy in for one of those insurance pit stops. He doesn't have to stop. He was in a while ago, but they'll give him some fresh tires to enable him to race if he has to. Those petty cars that went out, Jim, made 18 cars that are knocked out of the race, 6 of which were factory cars. But the interesting thing is that the carburetor plate is doing its job today, only 5 out for engine failures. And we do have a close one.
Boy, that was a quick pit stop. Even Leroy looked happy with that one as he goes back out on the track under the yellow flag. And remember, there are 3 cars on the same lap. When the green flag comes out, it could be just about any one of them taking the lead. Either Leroy Yarborough here, or Bobby Allison, number 22, who's in the lead at the moment, or Bobby Isaac, number 71.
Benny Parsons, the Detroit taxi driver, driving number 72, is moving up in the traffic and has arrived in the top 10, Jim. He's always a strong finisher towards the end of these long races.
And as we saw on the scoreboard, Fred Lorenzen is 4th in car number 3, but he's a lap behind. There is Allison, number 22. There's number 71, Bobby Isaac, as they get ready for the green flag. Here's Leroy Yarborough right behind Isaac. Gee, what a great finish we could have here. We're not too far from it in the closing laps as the green flag comes out. Pace car off the track. That's Lorenzen out in front, but remember, he's a lap down. It's Bobby Allison right behind Lorenzen, who is the actual leader in the race now. And we have Leroy Yarborough right on the tail of Bobby Isaac right here. They're battling for second place and trying to close in on the leader, Allison. What a great race, Chris.
It's a question now is whether the Ford can run with the wing Dodges. All week long, the Dodges were faster on the track, but Leroy is the only Ford left that can challenge, and that's what he's doing now.
He sure is. Leroy Yarborough in 3rd place, but still right on the tailpipes of Bobby Isaac. And trying to make a move. Isaac now moving up on the leader on Bobby Allison. All 3 of them really in it right now. Side by side for the lead. Looked like they might have touched up there near the guardrail. It's still Allison out in front, holding off Bobby Isaac. And right behind him, he must know now, he also has Leroy Yarborough. 3 cars fighting for the lead in the closing laps. And there's Isaac going into 1st place. Car number 71, Bobby Isaac, who in the early going was way back in 11th position, is now the leader in the race. In 2nd place, still by the narrowest of margins, Bobby Allison. But Leroy Yarborough is sitting right there in his Mercury. Of course, when we talk about Chrysler and Ford here, we're talking about Chrysler Motor Company, Ford Motor Company. The cars could be a Dodge, a Plymouth, or in this case, a Mercury from the Ford Motor Company. And Leroy has taken 2nd place from Bobby Allison, trying to close in on Isaac.
And don't think those men from Detroit aren't here watching closely now, Jim, both from Chrysler and from Ford.
Bobby Isaac not only on his way to the NASCAR Grand National Championship for the year on a point basis, with James Hilton out of today's race and apparently out of contention, but Isaac also may be on his way to victory in the National 500 at Charlotte, trying to put a lap on Fred Lorenzen. Look out, something's blowing. Isaac's going to be out of it. He's blown the engine.
What a dramatic closing laps in this National 500. A tough break for Isaac, and Leroy Yarborough goes by.
And there he is in the lead, Leroy Yarborough. Bobby Isaac still spewing smoke, but rather surprisingly, there is no yellow flag being hung out. They're still racing under the green.
Could very well be that that smoke comes from oil on exhaust pipe rather than on the track, so they're going to let the race go.
Leroy Yarborough with a solid lead now over car number 22, Bobby Allison. But the way this race has been going, stick around, although there's only a few laps left.
You sort of wonder what might happen to Leroy, Jim, despite the fact that only a few laps remain.
There's the 2nd place car of Bobby Allison. You saw the difference between him and the leader up front, Leroy Yarborough. Look out, another blown engine. This is number 39, Friday Hassler of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and he's really spewing oil. The yellow light came on immediately, and the yellow flag coming out, as we say, there are not very many laps left, there's going to be a problem getting this track cleaned up in time to get the green out again.
That's right, and Fred Lorenzen had just moved into 3rd place in the same lap with the leaders when this happened.
Yep, there's coming into the pits is Friday Hassler. A quick reminder here to some of you viewers, including the northeastern part of the country, that right after Wide World you'll be seeing NCAA football, University of Washington at Stanford. Heisman Trophy candidate Jim Plunkett in action. Be sure to stay tuned for that. There's Fred Lorenzen into the pits right now. He tried to make that a 1-second pit stop, it looked like.
They're just too short. What they're doing there is trying to get him set up for a late race surge with fresh rubber on the outside. Remember now, when the yellow is out, Jim, a lap is never lost by an alert pit crew. They send him out, he can speed around and tack on the back, and the field is pretty thin now. So Freddie's going to be ready to charge when the green comes out.
Okay, but the yellow is still very much out right now at Charlotte. We'll be back for the finish of the race. The yellow flag is still out at Charlotte, and it looks very much like we're going to have a kind of an unsatisfactory finish to a great race. There's the white flag being given to the leader with the yellow flag still out. That means that there's only one lap left for Leroy Yarborough, who is the leader. Unless the green flag would come out on this final lap, which is most unlikely, they'll finish under the yellow. That means there will be no racing down the home stretch. It means Leroy Yarborough will be the winner with Bobby Allison second. Those are the only 2 cars on the same lap. And Fred Lorenzen will be 3rd. It's a real shame for it to end this way.
And there they are side by side. What a surge and a driving finish it would have been.
$sign on the pit wall of Leroy Yarborough, and there's Junior Johnson, the car owner, standing by for victory. But as we say, a very kind of down atmosphere. It's a shame for the tremendous race that it's been to end in this fashion. And there's no sign of that green flag being pulled out. So Leroy's going to be the winner, and Bobby just has to sit there.
Look at John Sears there trying to nose ahead. It won't do any good, though.
Well, he can dream anyway.
You wonder what's running through Bobby Allison's mind right now. He probably figures he could have easily gone by him if he just had one more lap.
Most frustrating thing in the world for a race driver. Kind of vaguely reminds me of the time Dan Gurney pushed his car across the finish line down Daytona. Remember that one?
That's right.
But this is a different situation, and there's the checkered flag even being waved slowly, indicating that Leroy Yarborough has won the National 500 here in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's Junior Johnson, the winning owner, himself a great driver on the NASCAR circuit just a couple of years ago. One of the great characters in stock car racing in this country. Big Junior Johnson. Junior's car, driven by Leroy Yarborough, wins a total of $23,705 today at an average speed of 123.246 miles per hour. Kind of slow because of the many yellow flags. Second place going to the Dodge number 22, driven by Bobby Allison. Third to another Dodge number 3, driven by Fred Lorenzen. Then the Ford number 72 of Benny Parsons. Bobby Isaac is placed 5th in his number 71 Dodge. 15 out of the 40 starters were able to finish the race. And there is the victory lane scene with Leroy Yarborough under the beautiful wreath of red flowers. Chris Economiki's down there. Let's go down to him in victory lane.
And here is the winner, Leroy Yarborough. You're a great one for surprise finishes, Leroy. All week long they said the Fords couldn't do it, but you proved otherwise.
Well, Chris, you know that yesterday, I guess someone interviewed me. We said if the Chryslers won the race today, they was going to have to run. And that's exactly what they did. They ran all day. But after I lost Cale and David early in the race there, when they got in that little accident up there, well, I felt like I more or less had to do it on my own, so I just run this thing wide open all day, and luckily it just stayed together.
Leroy, if the green flag had come out 2 or 3 laps before the end with Bobby Allison so close, do you think you could have held him off?
Oh, I think so. The big thing was when Bobby Isaacs went out, because Bobby had been running good, and I let him pass me a couple of times, but I was going to race him there at the end. You know, it was real unfortunate that he had to blow his engine like he did, because I was kind of looking forward to it. Our Mercury just seemed to get a little bit faster as it went by, in about 8 or 10 laps. It didn't really get to running in when the tires got hot on it. It seemed like I could beat the Chrysler through the corner a little bit, so I was in real good shape.
Did you have any problems at all, with tires especially?
No, the tires really held up better today than I've ever seen them, I believe. I ran probably laps as fast as I qualified or faster all day long.
Gloria over there looks happy.
Oh, I am. It's been a long year, Chris.
Leroy Yarborough and his happy family in victory lane here at the National 500.
Leroy Yarborough, then, the winner of the National 500 in his Mercury automobile. By the way, the only casualties in the race, the way it turned out, were metallic ones. The flesh and blood human beings all came out of it almost unbelievably in very good shape. But as for some of the cars, well, they had a long, hard day. The executive producer of ABC's Wide World of Sports is Roone Arledge. The coordinating producer, Jim Spence. National 500 stock car race produced by Dick Kurtzner and directed by Lester Becker. National Air Race is produced by Fred Hutchison and directed by Mike Friedman. Remember, NFL football Monday night right here on ABC, the Baltimore Colts against the Green Bay Packers, beginning at 9 Eastern Standard Time. Next Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports, the World Figure 8 Stock Car Championship on Long Island and the World Gymnastic Championships from Yugoslavia. For now, though, this is Jim McKay with Chris Economaki saying so long from Charlotte, North Carolina. A reminder for some of you viewers, including the northeastern part of the country, NCAA football, Washington at Stanford, with Heisman Trophy candidate Jim Plunkett coming up next. Today's program was pre-recorded.